First up, she's the first woman and first African American to hold the executive director's position at the American Legion, one of America's oldest veteran advocacy organizations. Correspondent Angel Livers sat down with Verna Jones.
You've been in your role as the first female executive director of the American Legion. What would you say has been your most memorable achievement thus far?
Yeah, there's so many things. This is such a great opportunity to be able to have, to be able to serve in this capacity. You know, there are a lot of things that veterans need, and it gives people who normally wouldn't be considered for particular positions definitely hope to say, you know, if I work hard, I can do this too. So there have been times when I've been out traveling and there have been young women who will come up and say, you know, I'm a junior in college, or I've just graduated and I've been following you, and it just, you know, gives me hope and confidence to know that I can do the same thing. So those things are very memorable.
How do you think the trajectory and the American Legion have shifted since your presence?
We were founded in 1919, and things were very different. And, you know, although, you know, men of all colors, all races, fought in the same war, when they came back, the American Legion had different posts. There were posts where predominantly African Americans went to, you know, share their stories and have that comradeship, and then posts that were considered the white post. And so for over the years, it's just always been, you know, a white male in this position. I think now it just raises the awareness that the face of the military is changing and the face of veterans are changing. And so being the organization that we are, we have to change with it. And, you know, most people have been very receptive. It's all about having the passion and the heart to take care of veterans. And, you know, our 2.2 million members, they look for that. And I think they are now, you know, saying it doesn't matter what that person looks like. It's that the person has the head and the heart to take care of our veterans, and that's what's important.
Now, for the people who may not know the role and responsibilities of the American Legion.
So the American Legion is the nation's largest wartime veterans service organization, founded in 1919, under the 4 principles or pillars of taking care of our veterans, mentoring our youth, promoting patriotism and pride, and promoting a strong national defense. And so we do that by our divisions. We have the legislative division here in Washington, D.C., our Veteran Affairs and Rehabilitation Division, Veterans Employment and Education, and National Security. We go out and make sure that veterans get their health care that they deserve, make sure they receive the disability compensation. We have over 3,000 accredited and trained professional representatives across the country to do that. We liaison directly with the President, with DOD, with Congress, with the VA, and all other community partners and those who have an interest in veterans.
Can you speak to me a little bit about the choice cards? Are those still in effect? Are they working?
The Choice Act was set up to be a temporary program. Veterans who were more than 40 miles from the nearest VA facility, or who could not be seen within 30 days at their VA, they had the option to go out and find a facility. Now, for that temporary time and for what it was needed for, Choice was a great program. But the VA also has a program, fee basis, which they were doing the same thing. If they could not accommodate the veteran, they would buy the veteran purchase care, which was our fee basis program. Veterans are still going to be taken care of in that VA healthcare system, because if they're not able to be seen by the VA, if they can't provide those services, or it's not advantageous for the veteran to drive to their local facility, the VA will still purchase care and take care of veterans.
You transitioned from your military life about 11 years ago.
That's right.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that experience was like for you?
I think that, especially at that time, the TAPS program and the transition program wasn't as strong as it is right now. I just, you know, I was getting out of the military and I thought, there's so many opportunities and it won't be that big of a transition. I'm going to be living in the same area. I'll just go from one job, you know, just get out and find something different. But it was a big transition. I didn't take advantage of the TAPS program. Back then, you know, they didn't make you go. It wasn't mandatory. It just signed the paperwork and I was looking at the clock ready to get out of there. what I found after being so excited a couple of weeks, have nothing to do, I don't have to put on a uniform, nobody tells me what to do, was that there was a whole big world out there, and I had spent the last 8 years of my life knowing exactly what I was going to wear to work, knowing exactly what time I was going to be there, being told what to do all the time, and the transition was a little bit bigger than I thought. So I looked for jobs, and really with my background, I worked finance in the military personnel, and I thought it'll be so easy for me to get a job. I hadn't properly taken advantage of the resources in the military, and so my resume didn't look like a civilian resume. So I kind of had to start all over again and just work that from the outside without the resources that I would have been privy to still being in the military.
Did you have any major hardships throughout that transitional period?
Well, when I got out, I got married to someone who was in the military, so it was still kind of attached to the military. Had been a long-term relationship, and it didn't quite work out. He had been deployed and had some issues, and I found myself in an abusive situation. And going through that and not having, family in that particular area, because I stayed in where I transitioned, and my family was in North Carolina. I found myself being, I was alone and not really having anyone to talk to or really have that support group that I needed. So I ended up transferring. I found a job at the Department of Labor and worked there for a little bit and transitioned to get out of that personal situation I was in. And I found myself homeless. I was, lived in my car for about 17 days. And, people talk about chronic homelessness, but I'll tell you from experience, one day without somewhere to live is a hardship. And, for me, fortunately, I didn't have children, and it was just me to take care of. But, it was a lot to deal with, not knowing who to talk to or where to go and how to really manage that situation. But I will tell you that my military background, knowing that, anything is possible to overcome, and from my spiritual upbringing, knowing to pray and to just find every kind of, all the strength I had inside of me to just get past it, to say, you know what, you've been in tougher situations than this, pray about it and get through it, and I did.
Now, with that being said, I know the VA has a initiative to end homelessness for veterans over the course of the next 5 years. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think any program that's set up to help segments of veterans that need help, like homeless veterans and veterans with, PTSD, or those at-risk groups. But I will tell you that to end homelessness and to put a time period on it, 5 years, I think is an overstatement of what really can be happened. You'd have to end, mental illness, domestic violence, drug and alcohol abuse, balance the budget. How can you do all of that in 5 years? Now, I think that we can lower the homelessness rate, and I think that the VA has done a great job at doing that. But when you look at numbers and you talk about functional zero, having been in that situation, even if only for 17 days, there's nothing functional about not having a home to go to. And then you couple that with veterans who have families. Imagine a mother who has a baby, has her children. She knows that if she goes to the VA and says that I'm homeless, and if they don't have anywhere for her, the first initial thing is they're probably going to try to take her children away. What mother would do that? So instead, huddles up with her children at night in an abandoned building or her home or from place to place on someone's sofa, wherever she can go. And I think that we have to find a way to make sure that you can keep the family intact, because that's truly what's important. It's just, imagine a man who can't provide for his family, who wants to go out and find a job, and you don't know where your family's going to be. They're somewhere where they're not warm, or they're, it's very hot, or they don't have food. So I think that we have to take a holistic approach to taking care of the entire family, the entire veteran, and everything that goes along with him or her.
What would you say would be some great resources for women transitioning out of the military? What would be your words of encouragement to them?
The first thing I'll say is be honest with yourself. Everybody has a story. And if you've gone through some of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, that I've gone through, be willing to tell your story, but at your time, it's your story. But the story that you tell and the things that you've gone through really could help someone else. And it provides, at least for me, healing. The more I tell my story, the more I'm aware that there are other women or other service members who go through this. And one of the worst things is to feel alone, like no one understands, nobody else has been through this. So, take advantage of all the resources that the military has to offer. Before you get out, there's a wonderful TAP program. There's the Soldier for Life, Marine for Life programs, if you're in one of those branches of the military. Reach out to those resources and make sure that you just have a support group. Talk to your family, talk to people who you're close to. And most of all, love and respect yourself and understand that only goodness and greatness is meant for you. And we all have the ability and the power to do that.